What if your greatest setback is actually the seed of your most meaningful breakthrough? I'm Carolyn Pars, communicator, coach, and host of Just Power, a podcast about creating a clean energy future without leaving anyone behind. Join me as we explore the technologies, policies, and human stories that can make clean energy not just sustainable for our planet, but accessible for everyone. Welcome to Just Power. Hi, I'm Carolyn Pars. On the show, we talk a lot about clean, affordable energy for everyone and how to build an energy economy, an energy future that doesn't leave anyone behind. That's what this show is about. Today, I want to talk about something a little different, but definitely connected. I want to talk about setbacks. Setbacks and breakthroughs, not in theory, but in real time, with real people, real lives at work, and yes, in our energy transition. That feels like it's happening right now, because if you've been feeling like things are moving slower than they should, that others are getting ahead, or that, frankly, you're going backwards in places, you are not alone. So over the last year, I have seen this, and many people have come on and talked about this. Programs being reduced or rolled back. Funding that's sunset or has stalled in some way, paused in some way. Affordability programs and supports that have been strained. Renewable energy products that have been delayed, families, and mostly families that are struggling to hold on to the assistance like LIHEAP, SNAP, or other housing supports. And there's been an accumulation of confusion and fatigue all along the way. So I want to talk about that and what's happening right now. But before I do, I want to make this very clear. This episode is not about taking sides, who's right and who is wrong in this moment of time. No, it's about the reality of what's happening, where we are right now in this space. It's about mindset, right? It's about how we're framing this in our minds and in our hearts. I know I've been all over the place sometimes with that. But especially it's about meaning, the human experience of working towards change when the winds have shifted on you. Oh boy. So if you're feeling a little bit like I have, where we're making progress, but what just happened? Why is this so much harder than it's ever been? It's not supposed to feel like this. Am I doing something wrong? Right, all of those questions I want to offer today for everyone. I want to offer a different lens. Here it is. What if the setback that you might be experiencing right now is not evidence of what is falling apart or failing, but proof that we're in the middle of something important? I'm going to say that again. Right? What if the setbacks are not evidence of what is failing, but proof that we're in the middle of something important? What if the hard part that you're going through is not a sign to stop, but the tilling of soil, like a farmer before the next growth? I use that analogy because I was inspired this week by a newsletter that I get. Ryan Levesque wrote about a very old maple tree on his farm that had lost a massive part of its trunk during an ice storm, and it looked broken. It looked done. It looked finished. And this tree was over 200 years old, right? It has seen more than any of us have ever seen, but it was still standing. It was still alive. Its roots were still dug in, which meant it's still in process. And it raised this question that I want to share with you. What if your greatest setback is actually the seed of your most meaningful breakthrough? right? Just sit with that for a moment. What if it's the seed of your most meaningful breakthrough? So, I'm going to build on that in this podcast today, and I'm going to give you some points to chew on around setbacks and breakthroughs, which so many are feeling at this moment. So, point number one, I love this one. Nature laughs at our timelines, right? I am always moving faster than I probably should be, right? But if you've ever gardened, all right, or farmed, or organized a community meeting, or try to launch a program or a digital course like I did, you already know this, right? We're not in control of as much as we think we are. So in the energy world, right? We like plans, we like models, we like timelines and forecasts and targets, right? We live for those. And then reality shows up. Supply chains shift, policies change, elections happen, storms hit, winds blow, knock out the power. That happened to me this week. Budgets move, and people burn out. So instead of progress being this kind of linear chart that we see, it actually is messy. It's human and it's seasonal and it arrives in cycles. So just like Ryan's farm, in his newsletter, he mentioned that after 11 weeks of constant rain in Vermont, nothing was moving. He couldn't even get out there with his tractor. And then suddenly, after 11 weeks, the sun shone, right? The sun came out and everything bloomed at once. How about that? How about that? So that setback or series of setback actually created an amazing breakthrough. So breakthroughs often come in clusters that way. You know, they don't usually show up when we're fresh and confident about it. They show up after a long slog that we might have been through, when we almost gave up on a project. I've been there. So if right now things feel delayed to you, or heavy, or slower than you think they should be, take heart. That doesn't mean that you're off the path. It doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It actually might mean that you're mid-season and that ray of sunshine just hasn't come out yet. Timing, nature's timing, right? So start there, okay? That's maybe a ray of hope I can give you, because I'm going to build on that. Point number two is sometimes setbacks actually clear a space for something to happen that you might not have seen before. So life does for us often what we do not do for ourselves. Ever notice that in your life? That you might have a funding stream that has stopped, right? Or a project paused, or a job or a partnership just ends, no warning. And that hurts. It hurts a lot. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. So that, for me, that's exactly what happened at the very beginning of last year, right? I had, within 1 week, 2 big contracts that I expected to take me through the entire year vanished in 1 week. Gone. That hurt. That hurt. And I wasn't the only one that experienced this in this space. After talking to some of my colleagues, some were in similar places. So this was super, super tough for me. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that happened. That void that happened, right? That happened in that space created more space for an idea to blossom that I would have probably never thought of, because I was busy doing all the things that I do in my business, and I would have never thought of it in a certain way. And I would have never put those pieces together because I was doing something else. So that setback in one area can often create space or a breakthrough somewhere else. A setback in one area can create a breakthrough somewhere else. And if you're in that right now, just take a deep breath and really let that in. Let me ask you one question. As you're thinking about that, what part of your life right now or work has been quietly calling your attention, but you might have put it aside, pushed it away, right? And space is needed. So what's the garden that finally gets sunlit when something else falls away, right? So setbacks, to repeat that point, is setbacks can clear the space for something great to happen that you might have not seen before. All right. Okay. Building on that. Number 3, breakthroughs, when they come, are usually not dramatic. It's not like fireworks comes through. An idea might be sparking. You might be in the shower, right? But most breakthroughs are not that, oh my God, I've seen the light, right? There actually be pretty quiet moments that are fueled. Here's the piece. They're fueled by consistency. So what does that look like? So that means showing up at that community meeting again and maybe again, even when it doesn't look too good right now. It might be rebuilding trust where harm has been done. Think about that. It might be asking better questions instead of pushing for faster solutions. It might be listening. I love this one. Listening longer than is actually comfortable for you without getting defended or going into the usual position that we love to do, right? In our minds before the person has even finished talking. It also might be taking care of yourself and resting at this time so that you can keep going. We're at the beginning of a year. In my own work, I have seen this pretty clearly. When that huge chunk of business went away and what felt like my livelihood for that moment was gone, right? It stopped me dead in my tracks. Did I worry? Did I even panic a little? Yeah, I did. Especially at the beginning. But then with support from my friends and some personal practices that I do every single day, I reflected on this moment and I changed eventually my mindset about the moment, and I strengthened my resilience to do this in a new way, right? Perhaps even a way that had been calling at me. Remember I mentioned that calling at me that I was actually pushing aside for way too long. None of these moments look glamorous. But all together, what happened for me, it had changed the trajectory of my business. Okay, it was a wake-up call, frankly, for me. So I ask you, what and where are you pushing for progress? When what might be needed mostly is to simply show up, just to keep it going, even when it doesn't look like what you thought it would look like. Or what you might be pushing aside that's calling louder and louder every day, and you have it back here somewhere, but you're not paying attention. Okay? So those are I'm giving you some reflective questions along the way if you're feeling like you're in a setback moment. So number 4, the setback sweet spot. There's actually research on this. It's called post-traumatic growth. And I know that might sound a little intense and heavy here, but this is what it is. People who experience adversity, and we're not talking like absolute monumental overwhelm that levels you, but real lived challenges that are happening for you right now. People who experience that actually develop more resilience. They end up clarifying their values more. They deepen their empathy. We deepen our empathy often when we've gone through it ourselves and we know what it feels like. They could reorder their priorities. on what's really important in their lives and ultimately become more grounded in their life. These are important pieces that adversity actually brings to us. So too little a challenge in our lives, we can create we're really fragile, and too much, we can break. Right. And so that could be incredibly harsh. But what we're looking at here is the middle ground, that middle ground of adversity where we grow. So right now, many people in the energy and justice space are in that middle ground. It's not theoretical, right? It's not some white paper. It's real households that are experiencing real bills or real policy shifts that are happening, real stakes in the ground. And while this is so uncomfortable, it also means something. We are being shaped into the people who can hold what is actually required in this transition. How about that? We are being shaped into people that can hold what is actually happening in this transitions. And transitions aren't necessarily pretty. They're not fast and shiny and, go linear, like I said, with the newest, coolest tech out there. There's some really good things out there. We bring them on our show. But a transition that is just and durable and human, imperfect and relational, that is what we're calling for right here. Which brings me to my last point on setbacks and breakthroughs. What we do when the setback feels like too much, and it sometimes does. I know at the early days of what I was feeling last year, which has continued. It's not like, okay, all gone, right? It's still lingering for sure. But I spent the year really learning about this, and I'm really drawing to you some of my awarenesses and learnings along the way. So let's be honest that sometimes growth isn't what we feel at that moment. It could actually feel like loss, right? And that's how it felt for me. A program ends and people get hurt. A project fails and the trust becomes damaged. A family loses their aid that they have depended on for their children. What do we do then? So here are some of the things. First, it might be taking a deep breath and being gentle with yourself, right? Whew, right? We slow down. We slow down. We ask for help. Oh boy, that's a big one. So many of us, I know for me, that was a tough one to actually reach out and ask for help. We tell the truth of what is really happening now, right? So we reveal it. I'm revealing some things to you today, and we just tell the truth. We might even grieve a little for the loss and allowing us to have that space to grieve. And then rest. Rest. So we can rejuvenate. Rest might be taking a hike somewhere. Rest might be taking a nap, right? And then what happens, it bubbles up. We remember our big why, that big why of why we're here in the first place. You've never done that practice for yourself. Like you just say, why is this important? And then you write that down. And then you say, why is that important? And you write that down. And then the layers. And then why is that important? And keep on getting to your core why. That keeps you going, right? So after we get to this is like a motion of where we go, we can then ask to ourselves, what is that one small action? What's that one small action I can take today to be ready for the next breakthrough? What's that one small action? So now this isn't a big plan, and I have to write this big plan. It's one small action. It could be a phone call. It could be that hike that I talked about in nature. It could be scheduling one more guest for your podcast, which is what I did. And I literally did that because in my situation, I had a very trusted colleague of mine say to me, last year during this time of struggle, Carolyn, what are you crazy? Why are you launching Just Power podcast in this environment? You should know better. You should be pivoting. I was hearing all of this. And back to resting, I had to go into my heart and say, I got to this. I knew what I was doing was right. Did I have outer proof of it? No. But I knew what was right. And I knew in my heart of hearts that the winds would change. And I would be ready when that breakthrough comes. Not on my timeline, though, right? And maybe not in the way I thought or I scripted it, but it will come. Like the buds on a tree where the branches have been broken, right? The buds still come. So, in closing today, right? If you're listening to this and you can relate, and maybe you're in the middle of a setback right now, or some of the questions that I asked really hit home for you, maybe your motivation has dipped, or your energy is low, or your optimism has just cracked a little, I want you to hear this. You are not failing. You are in process. Setbacks look like little breaks, but they're often just openings. Check that out. Like cracks where the light can come in, shine some light on the space, where something new can grow, and moments where the next chapter might begin, but beginning quietly. Okay? And the clean, affordable, just energy we talk about here, it isn't built in straight lines. It's built exactly like this. Season by season, podcast by podcast, right? Relationship by relationship, setbacks and breakthroughs over and over again. So here is my final inquiry for you today. Where might your current setback be the beginning of your next breakthrough? Thank you for joining me here today. If one of my inquiries today kind of hit home, I would love it if you would share that in the comments. You would be helping all of us, because you know, as I always say, we are all in this together. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to Just Power wherever you get your podcasts. And if you really loved it, leave us a review and tell everyone you know about our podcast. It's going to take all of us to create a clean energy future that leaves no one behind.